We know who we are, we're a big bright spark.
So at the beginning, we'll just do the experiment, which John will explain a little bit more about. And then we're going to move into kind of a debriefing where we will kind of discuss what we just experienced and how we feel about privilege in general.
And, just make a circle.
A series of questions. I'm going to ask each question twice. If it applies to you, you step forward or you can step backward. Each question will indicate that. If you don't know what you want to do, it's okay just to stay in place. Okay?
If you have your own backyard, owned by your family, take a step forward. If one or both of your parents or step-parents earned a college degree, take a step forward. If you were ever made fun of for something you could not change or was beyond your control, take a step back. If you would be hesitant to call the police when trouble occurs, take one step back. If you ever had to skip a meal or were hungry because there was not enough money for food, take one step back. If you ever changed your appearance, mannerisms, or behavior to fit in better, take a step back. If you studied the culture of your ancestors in elementary school, take a step forward. If you can make mistakes and not have people attribute your behavior or flaws to your racial or gender group, take a step forward. If you ever have been spoken over because you could not articulate your thoughts fast enough, take a step back. If English is your first language, take a step forward. If someone has ever spoken for you when you did not want them to, take a step back. If you were ever uncomfortable about a joke related to your race, religion, ethnicity, gender, disability, or sexual orientation, but felt unsafe to confront the situation, take a step backwards. If you were raised in a single-parent household, take one step back. If you always assumed that you would go to college, take a step forward. If, when you were a child, your family had more than 50 books in the home, take a step forward.
And I just wanted to hear from you guys personally, because I know with you, Tessie, you and your wife experienced very different reactions in the experiment. And just being a couple, what did that feel like?
I don't know, I thought the experiment was pretty powerful. It was nice to be with a bunch of multiracial people here. And I would have never guessed just coming in here, everyone's status, so that was really interesting to see.
You were one of the people furthest outside the circle at one or 2 points, and what did that feel like?
Mostly isolating, like it's been a lot of my life. I guess you just don't know what's going on in people's houses behind closed doors.
So it was very emotional for me, especially to see my wife that was more up forward. So I felt that all those questions, I probably would have been to the corner. So I felt that I was very alone and ashamed of being here. Basically, that's what that felt for me. I didn't want to be here. And I appreciate that you invited me here, because I would have never done this. So it made me feel way better to appreciate her skin color. I think I have more power now to appreciating my life now and know that I moved way forward now.
Yeah.
So those corners are just corners. that I can just move forward. So I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody.
I thought it was really empowering. I think it was really interesting too to just see the variation that you don't see every day within the community, and just seeing new faces and learning about different hardships that we all go through.
Probably the hardest thing for me actually was watching Ellie, because she's my sister. When I would step forward and she would step backwards, it was kind of emotional for me to see that some parts of my life were easier than hers, and I'm sure it went vice versa for her. So there was times that I felt, it's weird to feel shame for your privilege, but I definitely felt shame at certain points because, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting, the juxtaposition of when you're standing next to somebody that you feel like you know on a personal level, and all of a sudden you feel a little more disconnected with them because of just past experiences from their life. It is a bit eye-opening.
Now, one part that kind of threw me for a loop, if I'm being honest, was when I ended up against the table and had nowhere to go. Because there were a lot of times in life where you feel like, now what? What do I do next?
So Kevin, the metaphor you used about being up against a desk and no place to go, what do you wish people of privilege knew about that experience?
To answer your question, the thing that I would want people to know is that, sometimes you have to take a chance on somebody that doesn't look like you, because you'd be surprised by how much intellect and intelligence is wrapped up in that person. I think about Preeti since I've known her, and just the number of degrees, she's got more degrees than a thermometer. It amazes me that it takes so much extra effort just to get your foot even in the door. And sometimes someone that looks like me might take a job that's way beneath their skill level just to get their foot in the door so they can prove themselves, and that can take a long time.
So my name is Preeti Yojan. So I was at the back, and coming from a developing country, and with the backgrounds that I've had, I knew I was going to be at the back, and I heard a lot from those that were closer to the circle. It was a lot of shame. And, this experiment's goal was not to bring that, but to really help you open your awareness and be mindful of where your position is in this town and in this context. And we've been talking about the racial injustice and the equity issues, particularly in Alexandria. And having that, seeing that visually, it just validates our points, and then it gives us hope that we can move forward.
Just based on what you said, what does privilege mean to you specifically? How would you define it?
I suppose, to be honest, that's usually what I am. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I'm not sure. I mean, it just is what it is, and maybe it's something out there that I have experienced and don't know it, or I do know it and I don't realize it. Because I was in farming, maybe that was a privilege. I didn't know that.
So I would define white privilege as something that I didn't earn, that I was born with. I felt a lot of sort of confusion, and I felt misrepresented because I should have been in the front. I should have been in the tiny circle, and I wasn't.
Growing up, I grew up in Alexandria. I grew up with white privilege. I'm adopted, so I kind of grew up in the privileged setting. And so for a while, I just didn't really feel like my opinion or my voice was really valid, because I didn't grow up in some conditions that other minorities might have. So just growing up, it was kind of weird for me to grasp the fact that I was even black, just because of growing up in the setting of privilege. There is so much going on right now that if you're not thinking about how your life might be different than the minority next to you, it's kind of just degrading and almost embarrassing to be around.
I am a Mexican American. I was born in the United States. Growing up, I did move a lot. I moved, and that was because of my parents. And it's always been that way, where it's like, oh, we have to think of what's next. We have to be better. We have to keep growing just to fit into the society that we have now, where education is so powerful. So to me, when that question was asked, did you always know that you were going to be going to school or to college or getting that degree? It was always a yes, because my parents always pushed for that. Alexandria itself has been difficult for me, even though I don't live here. I do come to school here, and when I look around, I don't see many people of color. There is so much that we can give, and even if you don't know anything about the black culture, the Mexican culture, whatever culture you're from, you can always come and ask. I think that's what people of color want. We just want to be understood, and we just want people to ask about us.
You said you just want people to know you. So if someone like me, an older white guy, meets you in some social situation, if I was to say, tell me what that's like for you in this community, what would that feel like to have that question asked?
Well, to me, to answer that question personally, I would feel honored. I would want to explain to you where I come from, because I hear a lot where you come from. I hear it all the time.
We live in you.
Exactly. But where do I come from? What does that mean? My background. I would love to explain anything from my experiences to my parents' experiences to my grandparents' experiences. I feel like it's hurt where white folks come from and their world. And not in a bad way. It's just the way we live.
I had the opportunity of growing up with Mexican Americans and learning about Cinco de Mayo and experiencing culture and food, and that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, right? But having some of my best friends be Hispanic or be like Spanish from Spain, and then Mexican from Mexico, right? Some of my best friends, and then learning about their cultures, going to their homes and having a meal, like just engulfing, like immersing myself into their culture, and then them immersing themselves into mine. Like, that's what this country is supposed to be.
So when we're asking a person of color, first thing first, there has to be compassion, right? And then the question shouldn't come like, for example, people always come to me and said, what are you? That's the wrong question to ask. So, you know, it has to be genuine, it has to come through compassion, it has to come through being able to understand this person as a whole, rather than what are your interest in, whether you're interested in Black Lives Matter, whether we organize or not. Let's not go there. Let's just, at the beginning, just talk human to human.
When I see black people in the community, I want them to know that I have some awareness of their experience here. And I have the urge to say, when I see a black person, I want to roll up my window and say, Black Lives Matter, you know.
Do it.
Yeah. How can I, with a stranger, let them know that I care? A person of color, a stranger.
For me, this comes down to just a really basic fundamental of humanity. Just acknowledging that I'm a human, not really, you know, not just being overly anxious to come and talk to the black person so that that black person knows that they matter, but going and talking to the human being, that man that's standing over there, walking down the street alone, right? Probably not real comfortable, because I'm gonna be honest with you, if If you roll down your window and you yell something at me, I'm thinking that you're saying something else. I'm just telling you the truth, right? It's really just as simple as a, hey, good morning, how you doing? Or if I look at you and I say hi to you, acknowledging that I said hi. I mean, hey, how you doing? And my favorite look in this community is this one.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one. I'm gonna look down and away because I don't want you to know that I actually saw you make eye contact with me. So really acknowledging my humanity makes all the world a difference. It really comes down to saying, that is another human being, that is another life.
So when you say that I don't see color, it does. It sounds cute to say, it sounds really nice, but it doesn't at all mean what you think it means. Because by saying I do not see color, you've immediately dismissed my entire lived experience and other people of color's lived experience. Privilege and acknowledging it takes you having to realize where you stand in that equation. Whether you are privileged or not, it's important for you to realize how your presence and what you represent affects the people around you. And unfortunately, we live in a community that is 97, 98% white, and this community is built on that same white supremacist system. I think that was a very important point to make, because when we think of America, we should be thinking of America in the various layers and cultures. It's a melting pot, correct? So why are we not seeing that reflected in our education? When we think about white privilege, our society is built with that specific experience in mind, and we all have to fall into it. It was never built with people of color in mind, and we need to really understand that on an intellectual level, because that is what we're speaking about when we're saying privilege. We're all conditioned by the same white supremacist system. We are all part of the same conditioning we were all affected by colonization in the same exact way. So much so that even people of color don't always realize that what you're experiencing in your views, your process, and thinking of those things actually is because you believe white is right, and that's because that's what you've been told your whole life. And so that's what, when Cynthia says, like, to be asked about who you are and where you come from on a genuine level, it is an honor. It makes me feel good. It makes me realize immediately the person that's standing across from me actually is aware of our differences.
We know who we are, we're a big bright spot.